Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girl, welcome to the BD MMA channel. So, for the Ultimate Fighting Championships 281st go at MSG, we are headlined by a very highly anticipated high-level striking affair between Israel, the Last Stylebender, Adesanya versus Alex Poatan Pereira. I'm kidding. I'm intentionally butchering those names. And a lot of coin flip fights underneath. The card is stacked. It's a lot of unprovens and minus 125 versus plus 105. So going over some of the gambling odds almost seems like it'll be a bit redundant. And there's a lot of people on the card that I don't know enough about to really say how to pick, and I don't want to give anyone bad advice, so I'm going to kind of skip a lot of it and just get to the point. Like in the early prelims, for example, like Karolina Kowalkiewicz, I don't know how to say this properly, so I'm searching for a way to put it. I don't like seeing women that I find beautiful, like, dinged up. It bothers me still to this day. And I know I can kind of somewhat get away with this because of my audience. And if you're a dude and you don't understand, then you're lying to yourself. There's no need to lie to me in the comment section or get upset about it. It's not that I don't like watching women's fighting at the highest level, and I'll get there for the co-main. But sometimes some of those fights, it's like if she gets bloodied up, what she has, it bothers me. I don't know if it's being the oldest or having younger sisters or whatever. But there's just something that's innately inside of me that does not enjoy it. And I know there are former champions that feel the same way. I am not the only one. I'm not on an island in this opinion. But it just bothers me to see a bloody face beaten. I don't know. And it's not the obvious. It's not like a childhood trauma, or it's nothing like that. It's just, it bothers me, period. So, that fight I might take a break for. The others I'll be enjoying, but they're very, like there's a Ryan Spann versus Dominic Reyes fight, for example. I don't know how that'll play out. Reyes has fought really tough guys in his last couple outs, and he looked great against Jones, but has looked less great since. Does that speak to John Jones declining or him? I'm not really sure. We just haven't seen enough of either of them. He's going against a dangerous guy in Ryan Spann, up and coming, hungry, hasn't really had his name on the map to the same extent. Great fight. I have no idea what to expect there. Brad Riddell, I think there's four. Yeah, Dan Hooker, Carlos, who's a great striker, interesting guy to watch. He's on the prelims. I think his last name is Alberg, Carlos. He's fighting as well. Brad Riddell, Dan Hooker's fighting, and obviously Izzy. Brad Riddell's fighting Renato Moicano, which I think will be Brad Riddell's takedown defense against Moicano's ability to mix up takedowns with striking. Because if it was just a kickboxing fight, and obviously that's thematic here, then I would favor Riddell. I think he's a better striker, and I think we've seen what those high-level guys like Fiziev can do to a guy like Moicano, who's very competent and a solid. He's a good striker. I mean, by all means, he's a good striker, but he's more complete than Riddell and not quite as elite as a striker. Obviously, Fiziev's at 155. I'd put him right up there as far as elite strikers. He might be the best. I don't know. We'll see when he gets that into the top 5 realm, how he does. Anywho, so I guess my point is I'm not going to go fight by fight throughout the entire card. I think everyone really, if they're tuning in, wants to hear me talk about the main event and maybe a few others, but I'm pretty much going to stick to the main event. So leading up to that there's a great fight, and a fight that I just think is kind of a lamb to slaughter, and it's probably not, again, popular to say, but due to my demographics and who tunes into my channel, probably safe to just be transparent with my audience at this point about it. I can't see a way that Carla wins. I can't see... Zhang Weili is just... Weili Zhang. I know I'll butcher it, so I'll say WZ or Z-Dubs. Is so explosive that it's almost like questionable, you know, without saying it, it's almost questionable. Whereas in Carla you have this tested, I'm gonna try to proactively not say you have a tested vet who's been there, who's been to the dance, won the belt in a strange and oddly boring, confusing fight against Rose, which I think there was more going on there than we'll ever know, probably. It was, you know, Ngannou, Derek Lewis, it was just a nothing burger, and they gave her the belt. It was almost like out of spite for Rose, just showing off footwork for 5 rounds. It was just a very, very strange fight. But I don't see how Carla even would score a takedown or be able to survive the onslaught that Z-Dubs is going to put on her. I don't know what the line is, but clearly it's changing a lot because they won't even post it on UFC.com, whereas all the others are. I mean, even the prelims first opening intro fight, that's got a line on it, and they don't have a line for the co-main, which is a title fight, which tells you the line's moving quite a bit. And most of the lines on this card are very even. So I'm really not even going to bother speaking to it. But if I'm a gambling man, and I'm a former gambling man, I would certainly bet on Z-Dubs, even if it were minus 400. You know, I don't think I need to say much more about that fight. I don't know that I care all that much. Because I think it's going to be really lopsided, and again, maybe hard to watch. I don't know. Leading on to more technically interesting and questionable and question mark type fights, we have right before that a wonderful piece of matchmaking straight out of Miami area in Dustin versus Chandler. And I don't know what their beef is, honestly. I try not to even follow any of that National Enquirer type end of the sport, but it's there nevertheless. And I noticed that Dustin looks a little aggravated kind of leading up to this fight in interviews, etc. Whenever he's either sharing a screen with Chandler or his name comes up, Dustin looks very serious, very almost out of character for someone who, you know, who's been through the Conor grinder 3 times, as far as, you know, just the public affairs angle in the media, the fact that this is at MSG. As far as technique and who I favor, I really think, and I heard somebody say this and I don't remember who, my apologies, but someone used the term shop worn to describe them both, who's more shop worn. I think that's fairly accurate, and that's kind of how I thought about it, is that they both are chinny, but not like getting slept by things like the end of Chuck Liddell's career. That's chinny, like 100% glass jaw chinny. Like he was getting hit by punches that he used to just go forward on, just eat them like nothing, to all of a sudden getting like folded up like a lawn chair from them, and they look similar, and the level of competition wasn't all that much different. It's just your chin has an expiry date, and it really isn't at this point in the medical field or in our years of watching combat sports. It's really not a question of if, it's a question of when, unless you're a freak like Hagler or something like that, or someone like that, I should say. Even Dominic Cruz, who famously had a wonderful chin, didn't get hit a lot, but ate what he did well. Lately, you know, you're seeing people that were known for their chins kind of not having them to the same extent as their career goes on. So, with that out of the way, I think what this will come down to is that first round. I think we'll all know, but I think you, the audience, will know within the first few minutes of the first round, because Chandler's a fast starter, and Dustin both of them have this crazy ability with said questionable chins, to get rocked off shots that aren't necessarily these monster, full-on Gaeth G-bombs, but then come back. And, whereas Chandler and Justin was very close, and Justin won, and Poirier has beaten Gaeth G. I think those were all even enough fights that it kind of washes out. Experience in the UFC wise, I think Dustin gets the edge, and I tend to favor the more traditional boxing type approach to striking, just as far as footwork, angles, shot selection, dynamics, cadence, and I think Dustin's more savvy in that regard, but I don't know if his chin can survive that inevitable onslaught he's going to have to face in the first round. Now, it being a 3-round fight might sway me a smidge more toward Chandler, but I'm still going to stick with Poirier. I think he's a little more complete, and I just feel like he's very good at finishing or sensing, for that matter, a wounded animal. He's got that wolf thing, or shark thing, blood in the water. He's not, whereas like Stylebender's teammate Carlos, that's something I've seen him struggle with, is like hurting someone and then not being able to actually put the W on it, like put an end on it. They either rush it and get caught, and it's an experience thing kind of, but it's also a matter of relaxing, because it is this thing. Anyone who's done hard sparring and hurt someone enough to get them on bad legs, you'd understand this, especially early on when you first start off with any type of hard sparring, is that there's an excitement, there's a rush to it, and it's inescapable at first, and what you do is you might gas yourself out. Certainly that's a possibility, but you might get caught being careless, because you kind of you'll resort back to sort of a street fight mentality, where it's just kill or be killed, and it's not the equivalent of losing your temper. I'm not sure if that's the best analogy, but it's just you're really blowing your wad. I mean, that's the only way to put it. And I think in those scenarios, we've seen Dustin time and time again hurt people and finish them. Minus Oliveira, although Islam has put a serious damper on that meme. Thank you. And we've seen Chandler hurt people and not necessarily capitalize. So he did with Hooker, with that. I think that was his debut, right? Yeah, that was fantastic. And I really like the guy. I like Michael Chandler a lot, and I like Dustin a lot. I don't understand the beef or whatever. I don't really care, for that matter. But as far as skill for skill, if Dustin can, I think he can just weather the storm, even if he does get cracked, just not to get flush lit up. He might be able to really put it on Chandler if he can put him on the same shocked legs, if you will. It's that kind of that stinger. It might be a jab coming in. It might be a head kick that's blocked. It may go like semi unnoticed when it's live, but I just think Dustin's a more complete fighter and a better finisher. And I tend to always favor the person with better footwork, and I think Dustin's got fantastic footwork and a great jab from southpaw that's really hard to replicate in training, because a lot of southpaws don't have the best jab from an MMA standpoint. Although it's getting better, certainly. It's like, it reminds me of the days when I used to have to like beg for low kicks or leg kicks. This is pre-calf kicks, like going back, Christ, 20 years. Now these things are all becoming more common, so I don't really have to harp on them or make videos about them as much, or I don't feel the need to. So I like Dustin in the fight, but total coin flip, unlike the co-main. Now for the thriller, not in Manila. I know everyone is talking about defense and 4-ounce gloves, experience, wrestling possibilities or grappling possibilities, experience. There's these mimetic themes you keep hearing about. Israel versus Alex. I think they're all correct. I think defense going Izzy's way. I think experience. I think there's too many things favoring Stylebender for me to pick against him, and I'll be upfront with everyone that I'm partial. And it doesn't even matter why. I'm a little partial, and I have a little bit of rooting interest in that fight, or maybe a lot bit. But even if I'm trying to be as objective as possible to the point of it being uncomfortable to say, I am aware of the danger of Pereira, and I just feel like we went through this with Yoel Romero, and certainly went through it with Costa, where you have a big, scary, knocks everybody out, freight train ahead, and Izzy just maneuvering ever so slightly out of the way. And that's where the defensive IQ and what I would call Swiss Army knife effect will really come in for Stylebender, if he wants to win, of course. Could Alex land something in the first round, hurt Izzy, and finish him? Yeah, he's got unusual power. Like at 185, there aren't too many people. Cannoneer, when he lands, he's got similar power, but it's not as proven. It doesn't have the track record. You know, Poaton's done that with the big gloves, and where that comes in is defense, and that's why all of those things, I'm not going to speak to why I think the grappling will, or why I think Israel's defense is better. That's something that I'd rather save for a video breakdown that I'm being a little more thorough with, where I can show you examples rather than just you hearing my voice, which isn't all that wonderful, let's be honest. But when people say it, they're not incorrect. I just want to make it a little more broad brush and a little less specific about the fact that the ring is circular, for example. So the better footwork comes into play more. There's just more area. There's, over 100, they're like 120 degree angles, I think, in the octagon, rather than the 90 degree angles in ropes of a ring. Those are the kind of things where, someone that's lengthy and explosive and powerful, like Pereira, it may not have the same advantages, and that then is sequitur with the fact that you could just say, well, experience. It's like all of these things are, they have correlation. They're all of them are symbiotic in nature. But I think the simplest way to put it is Israel needs to really bring out the Swiss Army knife and not just rely on movement and a good jab and outpointing in this fight. And I don't think he will, because I think he's got a little more to prove in this one than normal. And because it became this thing, even with, going back to his I guess, beef, whatever, with Sociopath Jones about, this being the one guy, the foil, if you will, of Stylebender. And I don't necessarily see it that way. Striking just the distance alone is different in MMA, but the angular precision of Izzy is astonishing, and I think he's up there highest IQ strikers, maybe in MMA history. He's right there. If he's not one, and I'm forgetting someone, he's top 3. I mean, I can't think there's no way there's 3 others that are above him as far as striking pedigree at the highest level, winning a belt, defending the belt, etc., all based on striking. It's not, he's not, using back takes and X guard and butterfly sweeps. I'd love to see him use his ground game. That goes to the prior sentiment of the Swiss Army knife. But he might have to really dig deep into that. Like that little part that's white on a Swiss Army knife. If you ever had one, you got to get with your pinky nail. You're like, what is that little weird stub thing? You get it out and it's just a toothpick. It seems useless until you need a toothpick, right? So whatever kind of clinched trips Izzy's worked on, or let's assume it's wrestling, because I don't see him shooting a Burroughs style blast double from X feet away. You that kind of wrestling, you got to start that early. But and it's dangerous too, to go against someone with precision knees and that kind of Pereira's timing is just astounding. It's phenomenal. and that's why he gets away with that single strike thing. But it's hard for me to look at an MMA fight and just go, well, the power of X is going to be the deciding factor. Like, I don't really factor in power so much. Now, when Ngannou fights, say, John Jones, who's proven hittable by lesser strikers, then you got to look at it that way. I think that's when it's more applicable. But I think when you have someone that's as good at getting out of the way for as many rounds as they have in the past in Izzy, it's really hard to pick against them. You got to assume he's got better jiu-jitsu. I mean, it's a fair assumption, as much as we get into cliches here. And the Otto system, it translates into MMA well, and he's had some submission opportunities. Izzy's not a fool. He's highly intelligent, and I think the combination of all of the prior sentiments, whether it's defensive IQ, glove size. So like a jab, for example, is going to have more efficacy, and I think Izzy has a much better jab than Pereira, and that's important in a striking affair if he stays orthodox. Now, he may go to southpaw because of the left hook. It's a little bit of a scoop hook that he throws, Pereira. Like, he doesn't overly pivot on it. He kind of just, the way that he throws it is kind of off of a level change almost. So sometimes he'll sell that. If you watch my video on him versus Strickland, you'll see what I'm talking about, how he sets it up often. But it's usually via an up and down, right? So it's like level change feints. It may be a strike prior, and however he set that up, he'll use something similar to then bring up the hook. But if Izzy's standing in open stance, then he's going to land that only on like a shoulder, because it doesn't have that arc, that sort of like triple G left hook that goes over the guard. One weapon I don't think is enough to beat a mastermind of striking like Stylebender is. But with that said, I think it is also important to note that Pereira's got a phenomenal 10, like his rear leg high head kick. He's got obviously the flying knee that people talk about. That and left hook are all I've heard about, but he's got like an excellent jab to the body, beautiful right cross, especially when people are over defending on the left hook. So his two's excellent, like he throws it as a lead. Powerful low kicks. He's got a really cool low kick that he used to do earlier in his career that we decided on calling a hatchet kick. I kind of did like a survey, because it's like an axe kick almost to the leg, like as a leg kick with your heel. It's very smart, because even if it's checked, like your heels don't have many nerves in them. I'm gonna pick Stylebender to win via defensive IQ. I think it's gonna be a war of attrition. I think it could be a close fight, because Izzy isn't a one-hitter quitter power guy, and I don't think he would say he is. A head kick on anyone can do that for sure, but I think if it's punches deciding things in the end, or if there is an end, it'll be volume and experience that are very much in favor of Stylebender. So I like him to win, but I'm not going to be really surprised by any outcome in this fight besides maybe Pereira via submission. I'd love to see Izzy at least threaten other things. I'd like to see him loose and flowy, and although I see this potentially playing out like the Costa fight did, where the pressure just wasn't intelligent enough to keep up with Izzy's ever-evolving game and stance switching and just overall like his arsenal. I mean, when you think of his like wrist grabs off of a guard pull into an up elbow like Ong Bak style, like he's so creative, and that's the guy that's got to show up. If it's just a kickboxing fight and those things are coming out, like the lead leg question mark switching into the spinning back fist head kick, like O'Malley does that same kind of combination. If he's loose and flowy and throwing those kind of things and moving around like he's doing capoeira, then I'll feel good about the striking alone. Honestly, I think there's just too many tools there. There's just too much that he does too well. One thing I don't like, and this is rewinding a couple minutes, but when Izzy goes southpaw, I'm not sure that he's ambidextrous truly. Where and I can speak to this because if I have anything in my acumen or ability or biology that's unusual, it's probably that I'm mostly ambidextrous. So even myself, who with most things can do either side, it doesn't matter. Besides, like my handwriting, there's still things that I favor with certain. Like I feel like I kick harder with my right, but I like to do all spinning things with my left. I think my right cross is better than my left cross, but I feel like my left hook's better than my right hook. But defensively, I feel like I'm better standing southpaw, and offensively, I'm better from orthodox. It's kind of similar in a way, so maybe I recognize it for that. But I think in this fight specifically, I wouldn't stay in southpaw too long, but I would certainly utilize it. You can't dismiss the left hook of Pereira. As much as I'm saying like it's not all he has, it is a super dangerous weapon. But he's not Jeff Lacey. He's not a one-trick pony. He's got enough other things that he can do, and he likes to go on the one. So power strikes set up with feints or much lesser strikes, whereas Israel will pick you apart until he feels comfortable to really open up those said hard ones. And I don't mean a jab, I just mean like the first strike of engagement. So the more of a Swiss Army knife approach that Stylebender has, the better. And I think the longer the fight goes on, the more it favors him. But I do see a finish. I think it'll just come a little later, late third, early fourth, maybe mid fourth. But I'm not going to be surprised by something earlier than that, and I wouldn't be surprised if Pereira lands something big enough prior either. If I'm a betting person on this fight, I'm still betting with Izzy, even if there was no type of rooting whatsoever. But what a fight. I mean, it really is a coin flip, and the rest of the card's really good. It's just fairly even match and kind of top heavy, so I figured I'd just spend as much time on that as I could. And if you're looking for my surest pick, if I have one, it would be Z Dubs over the Cookie Monster. I don't. It just seems so one-sided to me, unless I'm missing something. By all means, let me know. And let me know who you have and how in the main event. Be as specific as you can in the comment section. It goes a long way. And I'll do more aesthetically pleasing breakdowns after of the fights. That way I can explain some of the concepts that I'm talking about a little more thoroughly with videographic evidence. And we'll go from there. Pretty soon I'm just gonna wait for that 30K to hit so that we can all celebrate, and for other reasons as well. And until then, I'll just do previews like this, kind of keep them simple. You all have my permission to use my voice. If you are a good editor and whatever, you have my permission to use my work. Just credit me. As long as you're not doing that gross, this is my work, that artistic integrity thing. As long as you're not pretending it's yours or selling it as yours, then it doesn't bother me, because I suck at editing, and I'm aware of my weaknesses. And that's all I got. So I won't be watching Carolina fight because I like to look at her face unblemished, and I like Dustin by a scintilla, and I like Izzy for the post-fight shout-out to BD, like Dominic back in the day. JK. Alright, I'll see you on the flip side.